Welcome everybody to part 2 of Conscious Parenting. My name's Tammy and I'm from the Women of Inspiration platform. It's a platform I established on Facebook to create support for women in the various roles that we live out in our everyday lives. And it also just provides information and support for women. And so talks like these is part of that. Where we just bring information to make life a little bit easier and hopefully provide some solutions around those problems that we have to navigate. And I know, especially with parenting, it's always a challenge. It's never easy. We always want a manual. Everybody says, I wish I had a manual, but we don't have the manual. So that's why we have talks like this, right? To bring the information that we need. So today I have Isolet Jansen with me again, and I want to say she's in beautiful sunny Cape Town, but they're having stormy weather. Very unusual for this time of year. But the heat that we have here, I really wouldn't mind some of that cold here on this side. So Isolet, I'm going to give over to you just to sort of introduce yourself for maybe the ladies that didn't listen to the first one, and then you can kick off and we'll take it from there.
So as you said, Tammy, thank you very much. I'm Isolet and I'm from a practice called Aquila, and we offer family and divorce mediation, other family services, but we're also a counseling practice, and we also have a training league. And we're now almost 5 people involved in the practice in various aspects of those 3 areas. And yes, at the moment we are in a very cold and windy, wintry Cape Town in Bloubergstrand.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So today we're talking about parenting from a deficit. So maybe you want to just start us off to tell us for a starter, what does that mean? What does parenting with a deficit mean?
So parenting from a deficit is where we are constantly on the back foot. We are reactive in our parenting. We parent from crisis to crisis. Mm-hmm. And the deficit speaks to ourselves. It speaks to our own internal resources and what the capacity of those resources are. And if we are anything but close to full, we're parenting from a deficit. And it's not always possible to parent from abundance and from a place of full capacity. But there are areas that we never address, that we don't really look at. I think we spoke about it last week because it's scary to go there. And there are 3 main areas. The first is where we parent from a place of our upbringing, our past traumas. I think I quoted last week Matthias Barker saying that we aren't bad parents. We are parents trapped and wrapped in our past traumas. Mm. So, and he says it so beautifully. So that is areas where we've experienced things from our own parents that weren't to our benefit, that we have never addressed. Those are things where bad things have happened to us. And you know, I love the quote by Oprah Winfrey from her book, What Happened to You? It's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you. So it's what happened to you. And then you either overcompensate in your parenting, or you don't parent certain areas at all. And there's blind spots. Your blind spots come from your past experiences that you are unaware of. The next area is your current circumstances. And our world is in turmoil, and bad things are happening to a lot of people. So whether those things are from an economic standpoint, people are struggling financially, there are sickness in the family, or the parent themselves might be very ill, or they're going through a divorce. There are a number of circumstances where things happen to us where we are unable to be the best version of ourselves. And then there's the area that is perhaps the things that we don't know that we're doing that's not to the best of our ability. It is where we're parenting from crisis to crisis. We have too many balls in the air. We are trying to do too much. And that is the other area that we then parent from a deficit.
So we have to obviously take stock of where we're at. So as we kind of work through these points, I think for the listeners, viewers, is to just think about where it's actually like, where am I at on these points? And sometimes it's a combination of all those things, because we've had trauma. We maybe never dealt with that stuff, so we operate out of that place. Our thinking, our beliefs, our behaviors, all of that. Then we've got current things that are triggers of the past, things we never dealt with. Something reminds us in the present of something from the past. And so we actually stuck in like this vortex, right? And then there's a lot of other things that go on around us, like you said, at the same time. And then if you look at a combination of that, I can see then also how that leads to the burnout and leads to just being overwhelmed by everything we've got to deal with. So it's really having a holistic, again, perspective on our parenting and taking into account all the aspects of our functioning, right? Spirit, soul, body, once again, because we need to be strengthened in all those areas for us to be able to manage just our day-to-day life,
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
So do you want to come back to the first point and just unpack that a little bit more?
Yes. So an easy example would be where you have a certain belief about how you were parented. So you believe that your parents were too strict, there were too many rules, you had no freedom, and now in your parenting, in your style of parenting, there's no boundaries for your children. And they are just doing whatever without guidance. And I think we spoke about that type of parenting being in a big sense neglectful. It's the uninvolved parent, and they just, everything goes. They're not very conscious of providing specific guidance for their children. It's almost they have to raise themselves. And that's not the only reason why that happens. Of course, there are other reasons. People are just too busy. You see that people that are very career oriented, or someone that that just have this belief that from their past experience and from things that happen to them, that they have to focus on another area rather than the parenting, and then the parenting area is neglected. And so if we think about the effect that has on our children, it is that you're going to have children here where they struggle with behavioral problems. You're going to have children with emotional problems. They're going to struggle with their self-esteem, and they're going to struggle with forming healthy relationships themselves.
And academics as well.
Yes. And it is like it's a knock-on effect almost in every area of a child's life, and then in their adulthood. Yeah. And so that is the one example. But then there's the example to the other side, where something really bad happened to a parent when they were a child. There were perhaps a form of sexual abuse. And what then happens often is a parent becomes overprotective, and they just want to protect their child at all costs. They aren't allowed anything, so the boundaries are too strong. And you then sit with a child that is unable to function in the world. So either they just oblige and they sit and do what their parent says, and they leave school, and they're unable to be a functioning adult in the world and to contribute in the world. Or they become someone who is petrified of the world. They are scared of everything because that's how they were brought up. They were brought up thinking that the world is only a bad place and it's unsafe in the world. And again, that makes it very hard for someone like that to form good relationships. But at the same time, someone like that might start to rebel, depending on the child's personality. They might rebel, and you also sit with behavioral problems to the other extreme, and you might sit with children that lash out in a number of other places just to try and have some freedom. And the knock-on effect of that, of course, into the rest of their life is very hard.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we really look at all those scenarios, and so we think about the trauma that the person's gone through, the effects of that trauma on the person, our parenting styles growing up, the type of parenting styles we've had. And, Diana Bormeren's got you mentioned two, but she's got the four. We've got the authoritative parenting, where it's very rigid and very strict and not much breathing room for the children. They're not really heard. They're not seen. Emotional needs are not really taken care of. It's like my way or the highway. We've got then the authoritative parenting, which is your healthier parenting, where you actually communicate with the child, you consider where they're at. It's the more friendly approach to the children. You've got good boundaries, good limits in place, but there's room to breathe. Always, if I think about what you said about the permissive parenting. First of all, we've got that parenting where the child's over-suffocated, where they're overprotected, right? There's no room to breathe in that, and that kind of parenting, I don't know where that would fall in Diana Bormeren's. She's got the permissive and the neglectful. So the permissive is, everything goes. I'm going to allow you to do this, allow you to do that, no boundaries. Neglectful, again, is like, get big, just get with it. I actually don't have the capacity for it. But if we look at Hetty Britz's parenting styles, where she likens the authoritarian to the saw, where we can break our kids' spirit if we're too strong on them and we're too hard on them. We actually break who God designed them to be, in that sense. Then we've got the authoritative, which is the pruner, which is the really nice one. It's the way Jesus works with us, prunes those branches, gives them space to grow, prunes them in season, and then also parenting our children in the seasons, that in their age appropriate seasons, right?
Yeah.
Then you've got the watering can, which is the one that is overprotective. Too much, there's just too much water, there's too much nurture, there's too much, and that child also feels like they're just not going to be ready for the world. And then she talks about the glove parent, which is the neglectful parent. That's like hands off. I want you just to get big. It's this responsibility. But if we look at all that, I think, it's rooted in our templates, right? Because sometimes with the overcompensating or the extremes, we might never have had a really good template for parenting. So there isn't the picture of the parenting that we need to have. What does this actually look like? I've got to figure this out. And then again, the stuff that we go through. So even a parent that's been through a lot of trauma, they live in a dissociated state, which means that probably half the time they're not present, or have the capacity to parent, in the way that they need to.
Yes.
So that also plays into all of that, hey?
Yeah, and Tammy, if we look at some of the other terms in parenting styles that we hear often is, with this type of parenting styles, you also get what you call a helicopter parenting or lawnmower parenting. So and this is again to the extreme side of things. So the helicopter parenting is where the parents are so involved in their children's lives that the way we've talked about, they monitor every movement, everything that they do. They get over involved in their homework. They resolve all their problems for them. When anything happens at school, they are there and they're ready to go to war for their child. And I think it's very difficult for teachers, having to teach a child that's being helicoptered. And you see children in being parented in the style that struggle with decision making, and they can't solve any problems for themselves. They have no autonomy as well. And then the other parenting style that's even more to the extreme is the lawnmower parenting. And that's where the parents go even step further than the helicopter parent, but they run ahead. They mow the lawn in front of them. So they try and remove all the obstacles before the obstacles even arrive. And so that's where the parents want to protect their child from any disappointment, that nothing bad, that they don't see the bad, that they don't see anything negative. And so they don't believe even that bad things in the world exist. I had a client a couple of months ago, and she shared with me that her parents, her mother she would literally tear out all the bad articles in the magazine at home. So any story about bad things that would happen. So we have in South Africa the Huisgenoot drum magazine, and it's well, especially for me growing up, that was at home, and my husband. Yeah, and my husband said, he grew up with the U and the Bible next to each other, and his mother would first read an article from the U magazine to them at night, and then she would read the Bible, and she would say, you see the bad things that happen, and then bring the Bible and the teaching, with that. But this client of mine told me the story that all of the bad stories were torn out. And her mother passed away unexpectedly when she was in high school. And she got the fright of her life, realizing what is actually happening in the world. And that's very much lawnmower parenting. It is, we have children that are unable to handle any adversity. And a term that is often used for children that were parented this way is they're called snowflakes. And some of them are unable to even look for work, or they're unable to go and study further to make it at a tertiary institution. Because tertiary institutions don't allow mothers to arrive or fathers to arrive and have conversations with a professor about why their child didn't quite get the cut, or arriving there and telling the professor, my child needs this and this and this, so you must make sure that this happens. It's not how it is in the real world, I've heard stories of employers where parents would phone managers and say, how dare you treat my child this way? And so children who are parented with those styles are really, really starting off life very with a difficult disposition. They don't have the tools to make it.
So parenting with a deficit leads to children with deficits, because they're gonna enter the world with a deficit. They're not gonna know how to function properly in the world. Boundaries are going to be horrible, because parents that are like that have very poor boundaries, because it's a constant violation, not only of the child's boundary, but even the norms at schools and what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable. So they bulldoze over everything, which is not right. And can you imagine also for those children, sometimes there's a lot of shame and embarrassment around that, because the parents wants to get involved in things they shouldn't be getting involved in. But then also shame and embarrassment around, I'm not able to function in this world because nobody taught me how to do this. I don't know how to do this, and it's very sad, because, we know people like that. I know people like that were parented very overprotected, and the outcome for their life wasn't good. It hasn't been good. Even into adulthood, constant in and out of jobs, not having stability in relationships, not being able to function on their own, not being able to manage finances, and that kind of thing. And we see that a lot. I mean, we know we work with people, and you can actually see when there's been these deficits.
Absolutely.
Parenting, they really struggle. Unfortunately, we can't get it all right, because we have our stuff, but I think it's a starting place to recognize where we actually not doing it properly, and then to start working on that,
Yes, and I think it's an important time to remind the listeners that, or people watching the video, that people who parent in these styles that we just talked about, they do it out of love. They absolutely believe that they are trying their very best for their children. They don't see it as anything but love, and but it is important to recognize within ourselves, where is it that I'm helicoptering? Where is it where I'm a lawnmower? Where is it that I'm parenting in these extremes? Because I think some of the other way, we do have elements of that. We might not have it in all areas of our parenting, but there might be elements of it. And again, that's why it's so important to review our parenting style and see, am I helicoptering? Am I maybe being a bit of a lawnmower? Or are there areas that I'm just not interested in essence avoiding because I don't want to deal with that, and it becoming either permissive or neglectful in my parenting style? And is it because of something that happened to me, something that affected me that has caused me to believe that I have to parent in this way?
Mm-hmm. Obviously, on the other side of the coin is abusive parenting, right? Which sometimes has the same presentation in the sense of being too controlling over the child's life. Never mind, maybe there's physical abuse, because I know I've seen this working with trauma where there's been a parent that's had the absolute control in the home, but also been a physical abuser, angry, that kind of environment. And the child grows up in that environment and enters life at a huge deficit as well, because they don't know how to function in life. They're aggressive, they're explosive. They also, the problem with relationships and things like that, because there's been abuse and nobody taught them those skills that they need for life. So we're looking at all these different aspects of parenting. Okay, again, that parent, what happened to that parent to create that person,
yes,
that created that environment for their children. So I think, there's so many aspects to this. And then, even thinking about, then we send our children to school, and do the schools realize, are they paying attention to the deficits, the parenting deficits that are flowing over to the kids, and it gets taken out on the kids? I feel that's maybe one area that I don't know if we'll ever be able to overcome within the schooling system, unless you're putting kids in schools that consider the fact that, these things play a role in how kids are.
Absolutely. We, just I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but in South Africa especially, what we expect of our teachers, especially in the public schools, not even just in the public schools, but I suppose it happens in the private schools. You wouldn't expect it happening there, but it happens. And our teachers have to be parents to children. They have to be social workers. And they have to be counselors, and on top of this very important role of being a teacher. And I think our teachers are burnt out. Our teachers, there's just too much expected of our teachers. And I mean, I know of a teacher that she would bring a big tub of sandwiches to school every day. She would get up an hour earlier because she knew there were so many children hungry in her class. There are teachers that have to be so aware of, why is this child not performing? And then when they sit with the child and that child just breaks down. One of our local high schools, one of the language teachers mentioned over the weekend of serious things that they picked up in the creative writing of the children, and then having to deal with the social worker aspect of things and getting
Mm.
people involved, and it takes a toll on our teachers. It absolutely does. I want to go back to the abuse, Tammy. Abuse, there are two forms of abuse, or two reasons or two methods of abuse, I almost want to say. And the one is a controlled abuse, where you know what you're doing. You absolutely know that you are telling your child they will have a hiding, or you are preparing the speech and to emotionally and psychologically abuse your child, believing that by doing so you'll get them to be better or do better. I think the belief is be better, but trying them to do better. The other is a reactive form of abuse, and that is where there's a reactive hitting. Often substance abuse is involved. A parent that is completely depleted from a psychological point of view, unable to handle the triggers that they have psychologically, or they spew hateful words when they trigger to their child. And those are the kind of things where you say to your child, you are a so-and-so, or you are a this, or you are a that. You know, we must be so careful when we speak to our children that we address the behavior and not address the person. And yeah, so just to be, it's important to know the difference from a reactive form of abuse and then the planned, the sort of sitting and thinking and stewing and you know, believing that having that distorted belief that this is the way to do things. I think it's that over authoritarian type of parenting that you spoke about earlier that comes to play here. But I want us to move on to the second type of parenting, and that is where, from a deficit, the deficit parenting is where the family is going through a hard time, where there is financial hardship. That is a big thing, where there's divorce, and where there's illness. One of the parents have a serious illness, and it affects the whole family. And because those are really big things that consume us, you know, it's normal, it's natural for us to be consumed by those things, and it makes it extremely hard to then separate that thing that is currently happening with where we should be parenting from, where we should be parenting our children from. And yeah, we should be aware of the deficit. We should know that I'm not coping at the moment, and this is where we should reach out and ask for help. We should ask a grandparent to help with the parenting, to ask a friend, ask a neighbor, make sure that the school knows that there is this crisis this family is going through, and pull on all our resources around us to assist us in helping us to parent. And again, we spoke about mindfulness last week, and it's especially in this time, it is important to be mindful of the crisis that we're going through and how it affects our parenting style. And during this time, any of the categories that you spoke about earlier applies. It depends on the person. So you can become, to try and just manage and control the moment, you can become more authoritarian. You can become more permissive because you you don't want to put more pressure on the children than they're already experiencing, or you become neglectful. You're so consumed by what is happening. But it's a temporary state. It's not your natural or permanent style of parenting, and sometimes it's a short term event. It might be a couple of months, but sometimes it's a year or 2 years that you're caught in this situation before you're able to come up for air again.
Yeah, and it's going to have its effects on that. It makes me think of Bronfenbrenner's systems theory. Even
Yes.
coming back to the first discussion, to weave that into just how there's this knock-on effect. The parenting, our parenting that affects our children. Then our children go to school. They go to school with this deficit. The teachers struggle. The child struggles. So there's this impact on all these systems, and then it even goes higher because there are, if we look at then the current events, things happening in our lives, losing a job, the pandemic that happened, all these things that happened that we don't have a control over, that's linked to the bigger systems around us where decisions are made or whatever that may be, that we didn't have any power over. It's important to think about these. We weren't born into a vacuum, right? So we've got all of this going on around us. And then also, like you said, too, it's so important within your system, the micro system that surrounds you, is to have your support networks, is to have who you can reach out to, in those times of need. So that you're not trying to make it on your own,
Absolutely, and that African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. We can't do it on our own, Tammy. We can't impossibly try and think that we can do it. I think we believe we can, and I believe we are often very proud. And we find it hard to ask for help and to say, I'm having a hard time, I need a hand. But it does take a village, and it's again an important thing to consider, to make sure that we have a support system around us. If you don't have one, find one. Make a conscious effort to do that, and that's a whole discussion on its own.
Taking responsibility for also where you act. Like, I've also heard of a lot of new moms that feel totally overwhelmed, by maybe not expecting it to be what they thought it would be, or they've had quite a few kids straight after each other, 2 or 3, and there's a year gap, and it's so overwhelming, and it's like, where do you get the time to even get help, that sort of thing. But I feel it's a really important part of taking responsibility for where you're at, to reach out and get that help that you need before it becomes a deficit for your child as well, because you're not coping very well in that place. But I know that's not always so easy to do, because it depends on where the person's at the time financially, is there going to be cost? But I think it's important to have those systems around us that are cost-free that we can turn to for help, Yes.
And, I'm being involved in our community and the community initiatives, your eyes actually open to what is available around you. You're not even, I don't think we're even aware often of what is there for us. I recently worked with a family that they lost everything. they from a financial perspective, they were really wealthy. They had anything and everything that the hearts desired, and they lost everything. And to the point where they needed food to survive, help, food parcels delivered to them. And speaking with the mother, and it was a hard fall for them, and it was harder even to lose all their friends that now suddenly that's no longer there, people that they thought were their friends. And then just saying, I never knew these things existed. I mean, this is a family that don't know how to operate in the world without unlimited resources. And just showing them, here's a support system. Here's this organization that can help you with this. Here's this organization that can help you with this. And we all have access to the internet in some form or the other. Google, say, where do I get this? Right. Where do I get that? We have social media, so many groups on Facebook where you can post anonymously, ask anonymously, this is where I need the area that I need help. Can you point me in a direction? Do you know where I can get help? So yeah. Then our last category is it's almost like a blind spot or distorted beliefs, where we think we're doing the right thing until we know better. And that is absolutely why we're listening to podcasts like these, why we find out more. Is to see where are the areas where I'm perhaps operating from a deficit, and often we don't even know, for example, that we burnt out. So this burnout will fall in this category. So and again, this is where it's important to be conscious. Am I doing the right thing? Am I mindful of my children's behavior and reactions? Am I mindful to review my child's big reactions and big emotions? And am I aware whether it is my style of parenting? Am I parenting from a deficit that is causing this particular behavior in my child? And then to be open enough to hear the experts, or what I'm reading, or what my partner is saying to me. If my partner is telling me something, maybe you should just be aware of the yelling or the shouting. I'm not shouting. They are this and this and this. And, they never listen to what I'm saying. Be curious. I love that concept of to be curious about ourselves, be curious about our parenting, be curious to actually listen to what others' perceptions are of ourselves. I mean, we can take it or we can leave it, but are you curious enough to really investigate and to understand?
That's the best feedback you're going to get when you listen to those around you that are closest to you, right? Because they see the blind spots that we don't see.
Yeah. Absolutely. So what are the things that we can look out for in terms of being overwhelmed or burnt out or having blind spots? So one of it, and especially when you have little children, and especially having them shortly after another, I'm one of those parents who you're constantly fatigued, you are exhausted. And I often see this with moms, and then their partner is also not the most supportive in this area, where the partner comes home and it's like, but you were home all day. Why are you tired? It is hard work. It is hard work raising children, especially little children. But yeah, so if you're constantly tired, if you wake up tired, if you go to bed tired and you wake up tired, then this I need to have a look. The irritability, if you those triggers and snapping just like that, that is a warning sign. Lack of motivation. It's almost it's that dread feeling. It's a state of depression that you're in. You just no longer interested in anything, dragging yourself to anywhere or any event, or also when you constantly cancelling. You make plans, you look forward, and then when the event comes, you're not motivated. Neglecting self-care. Neglecting self-care is often a reason we become burnt out, but it can also be an important area that if we notice I haven't done proper self-care in a while, that's also a sign that I'm not looking after myself. Okay, feelings of helplessness where you just don't know how to do this. You don't have answers. You can't see the next step ahead. And absolute, again, a sign of being completely overwhelmed, and that you're emotionally drained. Social withdrawal. When's the last time you saw your friends? When's the last time something we talk about in the practice is playing. Play is so important for us as adults. I wonder how many people, it's something I never thought of for the longest time until it's something that we talk about in our practice, and it's for our own self-care. What are the things that make you excited? What are the things that you go do? But sometimes it's actual play, playing board games, doing a sport, playing a sport. But sometimes it's things like walking in nature, going for a hike, or getting involved with something you love, wildlife conservation, or it's such a wonderful area. Nature is such a healing aspect that we can use. So yeah, various areas of play. I have friends that enjoy dress up. Friends that enjoy going roller skating. There's a couple of rinks that's opened in our area, and the fun they're having in buying their own roller skates, making it fun. So there's many areas that we can play in. Decreased patience. Where you used to be able to answer 50 whys from your little one, and now there's just go away. No more empathy. If you can't see someone else's, if you can't put yourself in someone else's position or your children's position, then you know that you've got a problem. Then there's, of course, physical symptoms, headaches, backaches, all those different aches. You're not sleeping through at night. We're having a lot of nightmares. It's the tension in your body. If you're clenching, or you're clenching, you're grinding your teeth. And if you're no longer finding joy in life. If there's nothing excites you anymore, there's nothing that makes you happy. I think that is a really big warning sign that you might be burnt out.
Sounds like quite a sad state of affairs, doesn't it? If you add all those symptoms up, it's not a very nice place to be. I mean, I know I've certainly been there, and it's not a pleasant place to be when you burnt out like that and you just don't have any go, and I think to be mindful, again, the mindfulness of taking that time out to actually just self-care. I was thinking about the workshop that we're running with the ladies that we started yesterday with Carla Buerta, who does the stress and trauma release, who I believe is also affiliated with Aquila.
Yes.
And I feel like doing stuff like that is also really important for moms to understand, how do I deal with this stress? How do I release this tension that I'm carrying? And also paying attention to the nervous system. What does my nervous system need? Like you said, the musts, and Carl also mentioned that, when we must do something and we can't do something, it's a nervous system state, because our nervous systems are totally overwhelmed. And, if we look at the polyvagal theory, which is something I encourage moms, I know we're going to get to solutions soon, so let me put that out there, is just go and listen to a few YouTube videos on this. There's some good stuff out there to actually see, how do I deal with this tension in my body? Because if we can just release some of that, we're already going to feel better,
Yes. I would encourage anyone who can to get in touch with Carla. It opened my eyes. It really opened my eyes. Such a big blind spot for me was this area of stress and trauma release, and it also comes back to that body part, spirit, mind, and body, and we forget about taking care of our body, and it's not just about being fit and eating healthy. It doesn't stop there. There's a bigger picture, and those are very important areas of taking care of ourselves, but yes, absolutely. Go look for that polyvagal theory. Look at YouTube videos if you can. Get in touch with Carla, and learn more, because it makes a difference. It makes a big difference to our ability to cope.
Yeah, and when I was at my most burnt out a few years ago, I was training, I was eating healthy, but what was going on here and what was going on in my body was the total opposite, because you can do all those things but still have this underlying exhaustion where you're going through the motions of doing things, but there's absolutely no joy in any of that. But that's when the body starts to speak. I'm tired and I need help. And that's the big thing. It's helping our bodies to recover so that we can be better in those other areas.
I had the misconception that my nervous system is somehow not part of my body. And I learned that actually from Dr. Caroline Leaf, one of her sessions on her neurocycle app that she's got, and we'll talk about solutions in a minute. But I learned there, where does my mind start and stop versus where does my body start and stop? And the moment the penny dropped for me, and understanding that my nervous system is part of my body, I was able to deal with my anxiety and my depression so much better. And it was an understanding that opened a world for me, and to be able to heal in that area.
So what are some of the solutions that that we can maybe bring today to help the parents?
The easiest one I want to encourage everyone to do. And it's not a once-off thing. It is a daily commitment to yourself. And I see this even in teenagers that I work with, trying to convince them to take out 15 minutes a day for themselves is so hard. It's such a hard thing to do. So the first thing is to recognize that I am at a deficit, and that would be at the end of the day to review my day. Look at the big emotions that I experienced. What are the big things that I felt? What were my big reactions and my behaviors that I felt? And how did it feel in my body? You know, talking about polyvagal. How did it affect those around me? Can I remember the look in my children's eyes when certain events happened? So that's the first thing we can do, because by knowing, if we aren't aware of these things, you know, there's nothing to be done. But by knowing that they're there, we can then start. Then the next step, Tammy, and we spoke about this last week, and it is something, whether we do it first thing in the morning, sometimes that's hard, or maybe a little later after we've at least dropped the children at school, is to do a mindfulness exercise. There are wonderful apps out there. You can literally go on the App Store or the Play Store, whichever device you're using, and search for mindful, and spend 5 to 10 minutes. In the beginning, it's hard. The first thing is breathing, making sure that you're breathing in deep to the very bottom of your stomach, and then a controlled out breath. Do a couple of sessions of those. There's a number of breathing exercises. Once you get to the habit of this, you can again just Google breathing exercises. There are some where you count. There's some where you hold your breath in. But for a start, just make sure you breathe in deeply, fill your lungs, fill your belly with air, and then a controlled breath out. Then the next step, the next thing you do is you do a body scan. And you start with the top of your head, and you go down your body, your face. How is each? I actually feel now how the tension in my jaw. You know, what are you feeling in your body? Go down your arms, go down your spine. You know, every organ. How's your lungs feeling when you're breathing? What is your gut telling you? Your hips. Go down your legs to your toes. And really, almost in a sense, speak to everybody, every part of your body, and saying, how are we feeling? Where are we at today? And again, that's just a start to recognize an area of tension, maybe a niggling feeling that I have that I should or should not address. You know, some of them are easy, some of them we want to avoid, but making yourself aware of what you're feeling. And then when you're done with that, you know, not to rush into the world again, but firstly, you know, just move your eyes around the room, and then start to move your head slowly and up and down, and move your shoulders. You know, do a couple of nice stretches. You know, do we stretch enough? You know, stretch into the air.
And that is so important for releasing those happy endorphins of stretching as well, hey?
Absolutely. And then we come and we sit down and we become quiet and we meet with our Father. And we ask God to show us, you know, where do we need to look at ourselves? Yeah, and then what your ritual is, how you spend your time with God, you know. But that's what you lead into then. That is then the next part is to sit and have your quiet time. Then when you're done with that, you grab a notebook, and it's called Morning Pages, and it's something that Carla also teaches about, and you do a brain dump. And in the beginning, it's really hard because you're thinking, what on earth? It feels like journal writing, and who's going to read these pages? Mm-hmm. You tear them up and throw them away if you're worried about that. But it's literally just putting all these thoughts that are running in your mind, you put them out on a paper. And also Google Morning Pages, see what you can find out on YouTube about it. But it is, even if you write, I don't know what to write on this piece of paper. This crazy lady told me to do this. Mm-hmm. Here I am on a blank piece. You start there.
It's a start.
3 pages. Mm-hmm. It's a start. 3 pages are hard to get to in the beginning. So don't don't put too much pressure on yourself. Start with a page. Work yourself up to 3 pages. Even for me now, sometimes 3 pages are just too much, and I get to a page. It's nothing should be forced. If you're forcing this on yourself, it becomes another stressor, another thing that you have to, and the purpose and the effects of this is lost. But sometimes if you want to, you can review your pages maybe after a couple of weeks or a couple of months. I make a little hash for myself if there's something I want to come back to at a later stage. Sometimes I remember, sometimes it's just a list of all the things that I have to do today that are on my mind. But make it what works for you and what that gives you the release that you need.
Yeah, it's very therapeutic. Very
therapeutic. And then the next thing from there, Tammy, I mean, I suppose it's going to be a whole episode on itself, but that is easy starting points. That's not going to cost you any money. It's going to cost a little bit of your time. And if you pick up things from any of, whether it's the evening review or the pages you write in the morning, the things you are feeling in your body when you're doing your body scan, you can then go and do your research. You can, we are lucky to have the internet, or reach out to you. You're a wonderful resource, and if your listeners can say, Tammy, I noticed this thing, where can I go? Or even us at Aquila, I noticed this thing, or a repeated behavior. We have counselors for a reason. The people studied human behavior, and they can help you. It's not about sitting there for months on end. Go for a couple of sessions. Go once a month if it's something you need to just have a release. And go to your pastor or your spiritual leader, an elder in your church, and ask, this is an area that I noticed I need help with.
Yeah, that's really important. And also for me, what I'll just add is your spirit is amazing. So start to nurture your spirit, because most of these issues sit in our soul and our body, right? So if we can really nurture our spirit, that's supposed to be in charge when we bless it, when we nurture it, same as our body, nurturing our body, taking care of it gives it good health. Taking care of our emotional health is good for our soul. Our spirit, if we can just continually remember that God gave us our spirit that's connected to Him, that has all those resources that are available to us, strength, joy, peace, love, all of that stuff, that good stuff is in our spirit. So if we're not taking care of that valuable aspect of who we are as well, it's sometimes also the reason we're overwhelmed, because we're operating out of our soul most of the time to negotiate our life, navigate all these things in life, versus tapping into this super, super amazing resource that we have
Yes.
within us. And then one more just technique I want to leave for resetting your nervous system is something that I learned also doing a training in polyvagal theory, was to face forward, just keep your head facing the front, and then move your eyes. So you go all the way to the left and you just keep looking to the left. Don't move your head until you feel a yawn or a sigh or a burp or a cough or something want to escape your chest or come out through your mouth. Sometimes it takes a bit of time, but sit there until you feel the release. So it might be a sigh. And then you do it on the other side again, and you just sit there until you feel something come up and out. And when that happens, it actually resets your nervous system. So that you can do at work, right? You can do it while you're sitting at school waiting for your kids. Do the bit of breathing, but think, oh, just quickly need to reset my nervous system. People might think you're crazy, but it works, right? Did you feel the sigh come or something escape?
Absolutely, yes, yes.
And so that's also a technique to just reset the nervous system. And obviously, you can do that as many times a day, the same as the breathing as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's really good. Awesome.
Yeah. So have we covered everything, Isolet, that you wanted to talk about today?
As much as what I can share right now, Tammy, I think the two of us, if we get going, we'll probably sit here for a couple of hours more. Yeah, but right. Yes, I think for having an understanding. So if we recap, we talked about the three areas right. of deficit. So the first was from past trauma, that we either over or under parent. Because of our beliefs and what happened to us. Mm-hmm. The next is a current event that is hampering us, or where we parent from a deficit. And then the third one is a blind spot or being burnt out, that we can't parent from abundance.
So on the video section, I'll put some of the takeaways from today, like those main points, and then just some of the ways that we can, some of the solutions that we have. Yes. And then just to remember, this is my mandate, is Isaiah 4 verse 6, is my people perish for lack of knowledge. And that's what God gave me to bring knowledge. To share with people what they need, and this is what we do through these talks. Sometimes we don't have the knowledge, and therefore we perish, or we suffer and we struggle. So take the knowledge, take the information, and then use that to just help whatever situation that you're in. So I just want to thank everybody for listening, and I hope this blessed you and maybe gave you a few answers and brought some solutions. And Isolet, thank you so much for your time. And part 3, we will be looking at boundaries. I think communication or discipline and boundaries is what we'll be looking at, which is always a good one. So yes, until next time then.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Tammy.